She dropped the wrench before she even heard the second alarm. The shrill wail of the emergency klaxon sliced through the dawn silence at Ramstein Air Base, sending a shiver down the spine of the woman crouched beneath a C-130's wing. Jamila Kowalski, just Jam. To those who bothered to learn her name, stared at the tools in her grease-streaked hands as if they no longer belonged to her. 12 years. She'd been hiding in plain sight for 12 years. Her hands moved, instinctively, wiping the grime on a rag that had seen better days. But her mind was already somewhere else. She could feel it. Something was wrong. That alarm wasn't for a drill. Not today. Boots echoed on the hangar floor behind her. She didn't need to turn around to know it was Master Sergeant Mueller. His voice cut through the thickening tension. "Kowalski, I need you." She rose. Slowly, eyes meeting his. His face wasn't panicked, but it was close. Tight jaw, brow creased, and most telling of all, he didn't waste time. "There's been an incident," he said, voice low. Crimson Thunder went sideways. One of the F-22s is down. She blinked. "What?" "Raptor 3 ejected, somewhere over the Black Forest. We've got SAR en route," but he paused. Eyes flicking to the open bay doors where 3 jets idled, steam curling from their exhaust. "There's something else," she said, quietly. Nodded. "There's intel on board, a classified package, encrypted, and if it falls into the wrong hands—" He didn't need to finish. She already knew. Her throat tightened. "And the pilot?" "Alive, but injured, no nav codes, no beacon, we're blind." Jam looked down, forcing her breath slow. Grounded, she reminded herself. She was grounded, just a mechanic. "And what do you need from me?" she asked, even though she already knew. Mueller hesitated. "Backup pilot called in sick. Food poisoning, bad timing." "No," she said reflexively, stepping back. "No, I'm not. I've seen the way you look at those birds." He cut in. "You talk engines like a man who's flown them. That doesn't mean I can." "You can," he said. Then, softer. "And you have, haven't you?" She couldn't speak. Mueller pulled out a tablet and held it up. Her name glowed back at her. Jam Kowalski, but beneath it, something deeper. Background scans, holes in documentation, flags. Gaps that shouldn't exist unless they were made to exist. "You've been hiding," he said. "Very well, but not well enough." She looked away. Her gaze landed on the F-22s, sleek and poised for war, their canopies reflecting the gray morning sky. The sound of their engines was muscle memory alive. In her bones, 12 years since she'd worn a flight suit. Since she'd heard someone call her Phoenix. Since she'd walked away from the cockpit and vowed never to return. But the world didn't care about vows. "Kowalski," Mueller said, stepping closer, lowering his voice. "I don't care why you ran. I care that someone out there is bleeding, and we've got 3 birds waiting on a 4th. If you can help, if you're half the pilot I think you are, then right now, you're not just useful. You're necessary." A voice crackled over his radio. "Colonel Harrison, status." "On the backup pilot?" "We're losing daylight." Mueller didn't take his eyes off her. "Tell me the truth. Have you flown Raptors?" She inhaled sharply, deeply before whispering, "Yes." He didn't react. Not visibly, but something in the air shifted. It was done. "All right," he said. "Get to mission prep. 5 minutes. I'll stall Harrison." She stood frozen as he turned and walked away. Then she moved. Inside the prep room, time warped. The briefing, the maps, the quick exchange with Colonel Harrison. The shocked expressions when she answered system questions with perfect precision. They passed in a blur. Every technical term, every radar profile, every evasive maneuver they hadn't left her. They were sleeping wolves waiting. "What kind of pilot are you?" They asked. She didn't answer. Not really. She just kept speaking in the language of systems and tactics, words she hadn't allowed herself to use in a decade. When she walked toward the hangar, the world fell silent. Each step toward the F-22 was heavier than the last. but her hands weren't trembling anymore. Not like earlier. No. Now they were steady. Lightning 1, Lightning 2, Lightning 3. She would be Shadow 4. As she climbed into the cockpit, her fingers brushed against the flight stick. The leather was warm, familiar. Waiting? You ready? Asked Lieutenant Colonel Chung, the mission commander. Jam looked ahead at the instruments. Her voice didn't shake. I never stopped being ready. They took off into the gray sky like they were born in it. The mission was already underway before. They reached cruising altitude. The comms buzzed with urgency. The downed pilot Rodriguez had found a clearing but was pinned by injury. Hostiles were closing in. A NATO intelligence package lay somewhere near him. And the world was holding its breath. Jam's voice broke through the chatter, calm and exact. Recommend grid search, high-low split, 2 on overwatch, 2 low pass. Thermal scan for canopy breaks and recent ground disturbances. Silence. Then Chun replied, Shadow 4. Are you sure you're just a backup? She didn't answer. She didn't have to. It was in her voice. It was in the way she moved. And it was in the way. When Rodriguez reported contact 12 figures moving through the tree line, Jam didn't. Flinch, Rodriguez, she said. Look 200 meters southeast. Natural windfall clearing, minimal canopy. Thermal suggests disturbed ground. Can you reach it? Rodriguez's voice, stunned. I see it. How did you? Never mind. I'm moving. The radio room fell quiet. Even air traffic was listening now. Captain Webb, the ATC officer, watched her movements from above, tracking her through data streams, listening to her recommend flight patterns, establish a defensive perimeter, coordinate extraction timing, and all he could think was, who is she really? When they returned successful extraction, no shots fired. Intelligence secured, she felt at the moment her boots touched the tarmac. The lie was done. The debrief room was silent. 3 officers stared at her. Harrison, Chun, Williams, and the question came fast. Where did you learn all that? She looked at her lap. Her flight suit still smelled like the cockpit. She wanted to peel it off and disappear. Then Williams noticed the tattoo, barely visible beneath her sleeve. A small symbol. Wings wrapped around a lightning bolt. And beneath it, TGO 713. Top Gun. Class of 2013. You were Top Gun? Harrison whispered. Chun's tablet was already pulling records. The name appeared in seconds. Lieutenant Jamila Kowalski, call sign. Phoenix, graduated at 19. Top of class. Tactical innovation scores unmatched. Your Phoenix? Williams said softly, The Phoenix? You're a myth. No, she replied. I was a mistake. They stared. I got my wingman killed, she said. 12 years ago. Sarah Walsh, the best pilot I ever knew. She trusted me, and I pushed too hard. I don't deserve to wear this suit. But even as the words left her lips, Harrison was shaking his head. That's not what the report says. He opened the file classified findings she'd never seen. Hydraulic failure, manufacturing defect. Nothing to do with her maneuver. You didn't kill her, Harrison said. You saved 5 others. Jan felt her body go cold. It didn't make sense. Not after all this time, all this guilt. You earned a silver star for that day. Martinez added from the Pentagon screen. You just didn't stick around long enough to hear it. She couldn't breathe. Everything she thought she'd been running from had never existed. She hadn't disappeared because she was dangerous. She disappeared because someone made her believe she was. Chun stepped forward. You didn't lose everything that day. You just buried it. Jam looked up. And for the first time in 12 years, Phoenix opened her eyes. Why was her voice shaking when everything had gone perfectly? The mission was over. The debrief concluded. The pilot rescued. The intel recovered. Every objective checked. So why couldn't she stop trembling? She sat alone in her small apartment, still wearing the undershirt of the flight suit, arms folded tight, body refusing to relax. The soft hum of the bass outside was a distant whisper compared to the roar inside her mind. 12 years. She had survived 12 years by becoming small, quiet, unseen, and now, in a single morning, she'd let it all unravel. The knock came softly, then again. Firmer. Jam turned toward the door. She didn't move. A pause. Then a voice through the wood. Miss Kowalski, Defense Security, we need to speak with you. She opened the door. Slowly, Colonel Harrison stood on the other side, his posture straight, his face unreadable. Beside him was Major Williams and a woman she didn't recognize civilian clothes. Briefcase, badge clipped to her collar. Agent Sarah Kim, the woman said. Stepping inside without waiting. Defense Security Service. We're conducting a formal background review. Jam said nothing. She simply stepped back and let them. In her apartment was simple, clean, utilitarian, too quiet. It didn't look like a home. It looked like a shell. Kim's eyes swept the space quickly. Impressive operational security, she said, almost to herself. You erased every trace of your identity. This wasn't just hiding. This was disappearing. Jam sat. She didn't flinch when Kim began photographing her documents, scanning her books, flipping through her mail. You changed names multiple times, Kim said. Backdated employment history, altered school records. Even your banking activity was coded to avoid flags. I needed to disappear, Jam replied. Why? She hesitated then. Because I killed someone I loved. Kim didn't react. She opened her briefcase instead and laid out a timeline resignation papers. Service logs, the accident report. You resigned 7 days after the accident. She said, that's not enough time to process grief. It's barely enough time to breathe. Jam swallowed. I didn't need time. I knew it was my fault. No. Williams said softly, you believed it was. There's a difference. Harrison added. Kim leaned forward. Let me ask you something difficult. Why were you so quick to believe you were guilty? Jam looked away. But the memories came anyway, sharp, fast, uninvited. Sarah's face, the hangar after the accident, the silence, the looks, and then Lieutenant Commander Blake Morrison, Jam said quietly. He told me I'd been reckless, that I killed Sarah trying. To show off, Kim's pen paused. Morrison? He was still active duty. Jam nodded. He was Sarah's wingman before she flew with me. He didn't like that I replaced him. Professional jealousy. Kim murmured. Already searching a secure laptop, Williams crossed his arms. We need to know exactly what Morrison said to you. Jam tried to remember. He said Sarah's parents deserved the truth, that I was too aggressive, too arrogant. Kim's expression hardened. That wasn't grief. That was psychological manipulation. The room fell silent. Then Kim turned the laptop toward Jam. Look at this, she said. Here's a letter from Morrison filed 3 weeks before the accident. A complaint against you. He accused you of receiving preferential treatment because of your Top Gun record. He argued that you were unfit to lead in combat. Jam blinked. He tried to get you removed from flight status. Kim added, and when that didn't work, he waited. When the accident happened, he used it. She felt sick. Harrison stepped forward. And Captain Stevens, the squadron commander, he wrote a memo the day after you resigned, recommending Morrison's removal for creating a toxic environment. But I was already gone. Jam whispered. Exactly. 12 years. 12 years spent punishing herself, believing she had failed, mourning a death she thought she caused. But the truth was worse. She'd been driven out. Systematically. Why didn't anyone tell me? She asked, her voice thin. Because you vanished, Kim said. Before the investigation could clear you, before Stevens could take action. You disappeared before the truth could catch up. Jam felt her breath catch in her throat. The room felt too small. She stood, walked to the window, looked out at the base. So normal, so ordinary. But her world was spinning. 12 years of silence, of doubt, of hiding, and all of it built on a lie. Where's Morrison now? She asked. Harrison answered, Commander. Test pilot instructor. Nas Oceana. Of course, he got promoted. She got buried. Jam turned back, her voice lower. He let me believe I killed her, and then he built a career on the wreckage of mine. Kim nodded. He didn't just sabotage your career. He let you destroy it yourself. The quiet after those words felt heavier than gunfire. What do I do now? She asked. Harrison didn't hesitate. You take it back. She stared at him. You stop letting him own your story, he said. You stop living under his lie. You've carried the weight of his betrayal long enough. Jam's hands trembled. Again, but not from fear. From rage. Real, focused, purifying rage. She had given up everything. Her life, her identity, her purpose. Because one man decided she didn't belong. That ends now. The knock at her door 3 days later came early. A plain envelope, no sender, no stamp. Inside, a single sheet. Phoenix, we need you. No name, no signature. But she knew Fallon, the place where it all began, and maybe where it could begin again. She hadn't stepped inside a chapel in years, but something about this moment demanded silence. The wood creaked beneath her boots as she entered the small base chapel. Tucked away behind the logistics hangars at Ramstein, it was quiet, empty, and exactly what she needed. Jam sat in the back row, the old wooden pew rough beneath her hands. She didn't look at the altar. She didn't need to. This wasn't about belief in anything but herself, or rather, the part of herself she'd buried long ago. She'd flown again. She'd saved someone, and now she knew the truth. Sarah's. Death hadn't been her fault, so why did it still feel like her soul was carrying a weight she couldn't name? Colonel Harrison entered a few minutes later, followed by Major Williams and Agent Kim. None of them spoke until they were seated. Even then, their voices came soft. Phoenix, Kim said, I need to ask a different kind of question today. Not about tactics, about why Jam didn't move. We know Morrison undermined you. We know you were cleared of fault, but I need to understand what made his words so effective. Why were you so ready to believe you didn't belong? Silence. Then Jam whispered, because I was 19 and I was different. Kim's pen stopped. I was fast, sharp, top of every class. I saw solutions others missed, and I knew it. That scared people. I didn't have time to be humble. I was just trying to survive. Williams nodded slowly. You felt isolated. I was isolated, Jam replied. Even instructors tiptoed around me. Too young, too female, too good. I spent every day trying not to give them another reason to doubt me. Kim's voice softened. So when the accident happened, it confirmed everything I feared. Jam finished. I wasn't ready. I wasn't good enough. Morrison just said what I was already afraid of. She ran her fingers along the edge of the pew. The wood was cold. I saw Sarah's mom at the funeral, she said. She came up to me, asked if I was the one leading the mission. When I said yes, she just looked at me, like she couldn't understand how someone so young could be trusted with her daughter's life. Kim inhaled slowly. She didn't mean to hurt you. I know, Jam said. But Morrison was there too. He heard it, used. It told me he'd testify against me if there was a hearing. Sighed I didn't deserve the wings I wore. She turned her gaze toward the empty altar. I believed him. Harrison spoke next. Phoenix, that wasn't grief. That was psychological warfare. And you've been living with its fallout for over a decade. Jam swallowed hard. I thought I was protecting people by leaving, by stepping away. I thought I was being responsible. No, Kim said. You were being manipulated. And then you started doing the manipulation yourself. Internalized it. Built your whole identity around it. Williams leaned forward. You stopped flying, but the world didn't. Stop needing you. Jam looked up, startled. There were missions you should have flown. He continued. Rescues you should have led. Pilots you should have trained for 12 years. We've been missing what only you could give. That's not fair, she whispered. No, Harrison said gently. It's not, but it's true. She stood, walking to the stained glass window. A woman with wings, archangel, maybe a protector. "Do you think I've wasted my life?" she asked. "No," Kim said, "but I think you've been running from it." That hit harder than she expected. They stayed quiet a long time after that. When Jam finally turned back to them, her voice was steady. "If I go back?" "It won't. Be easy." "No," Harrison agreed. "But nothing worth doing ever is." Kim rose, gathering her things. "Just promise me one thing." "What?" "Don't let fear write your future the way guilt wrote your past." Jam said nothing, but in her heart, something cracked open later that night. As she walked the quiet streets near her apartment, she passed the cafe owned by Hans Müller, the older German mechanic who'd once lent her a tool set when no one else trusted her with anything sharp. He was sweeping outside. "Jam," he greeted. "Long day?" "Long year," she replied with a tired smile. "You look different." She paused. "What would you do if you found out everything you believed about yourself was wrong?" Hans didn't hesitate. The Benz, was the belief protecting you or hiding you? She blinked. "What's the difference?" "The first builds walls, the second builds cages." That night, Jam called her sister in Poland Emma, the one person left in the world who knew her real name. She explained everything, from Top Gun to Sarah to today. Emma was quiet for a long time. Then she said, "Jamila, Papa used to say, when you bury your talent to avoid judgment, you're not being humble, you're being selfish." Jam closed her eyes. She remembered. She remembered it all. "I'm scared," she whispered. "Of what?" "Of failing, of being seen, of not being the legend everyone thinks I was." Emma's voice was warm. "You're not a legend, you're just Jam. But even Jam on her worst day is better than most people at their best." It wasn't praise. It was truth, and Jam knew it. That night, she pulled out a box from her closet. Inside, her Naval Academy ring, her Top Gun certificate. A photo of her and Sarah by an F-18, arms around each other. Grinning like kids who thought they were invincible, she traced Sarah's face with her thumb. "I miss you," she said quietly. But then she added, "I think it's time I stop hiding." Behind you, she opened her laptop, typed 3 words in a new message. "Phoenix is ready," and hit send. She didn't expect the Navy to answer her message with a convoy. At 08:00 sharp, the street outside her apartment trembled under the weight of military-grade tires. A convoy of unmarked black vehicles rolled to a smooth stop, drawing curious eyes. From her quiet neighbors, German civilians stared from windows, blinking at the sight of something that didn't belong, something that hadn't come for them. It had come for her. Jam stood at her window, her fingers tightening on the curtain edge. She saw them step out. Admiral Rebecca Stone, Captain Martinez, and 3 officers she didn't recognize. 12 years ago, they buried her with silence. Today, they came to resurrect her. There was a knock. She opened the door before they could knock twice. "Lieutenant Commander Kowalski," Admiral Stone said, her voice formal, steady. "Welcome back." Jan didn't speak. She didn't need to. Stone stepped aside, allowing the others to approach. "Commander." "Jake Sullivan," said the first man, offering a handshake with a hint of reverence. "Top Gun instructor. I've been teaching your tactical methods for years, without knowing if you were even alive." "Captain Lisa Chun," said the second. "Test pilot school. We still analyze your flight data. Some of your maneuvers are, well, no one's replicated them with any consistency." The third was young, mid-20s, barely more than a boy. He stepped forward awkwardly. "Lieutenant Alex Rodriguez," he said. "My father, Captain Rodriguez, you saved him during the Raptor 3 crash. He said flying with you changed everything. He's been telling stories about Phoenix my entire life." Jam's breath caught. That was the moment it landed. Just how far her legacy had traveled, even while she stayed still. "I didn't think anyone remembered," she said, voice almost a whisper. "Remembered?" Sullivan laughed softly. Ma'am, you're myth. Ghost stories in squadron dorms. The pilot who vanished. We all trained on tactics you invented without knowing your name. Jam looked between them and realized they hadn't come to invite her back to duty. They'd come to ask her to lead. Captain Chun opened a case and unfurled a series of diagrams. Aircraft formations, tactical overlays, flight paths color-coded in intricate branches. These, Chun said, pointing, are your old maneuvers. We evolved them, refined them, used them in real combat. Your innovations didn't die when you disappeared. They just became doctrine. Then, Admiral Stone stepped forward, holding a tablet. There's something else you should know. After you left, we started something. She tapped the screen. The Phoenix Initiative. 12 pilot profiles appeared. Men and women in their 20s and 30s, all tagged. Tactically gifted, unorthodox thinker. High potential. You weren't the end, Stone said. You were the beginning. We've been watching for pilots like you, innovators, fighters who think outside the box, these 12. They're yours now. Jam stared at the screen. You want me to train them? She asked. Stone nodded. Lead them. Guide them. Teach them what only you can. I've been out of the cockpit for over a decade. And yesterday, you flew. A perfect tactical rescue mission, Martinez said. You don't lose instincts like that. You just forget you still have them. Chun tapped again. This time, classified specs appeared. Aircraft design she didn't recognize, advanced, angular. Fighters with capabilities she'd only dreamed about. What are these? The next generation, Stone said, though for pilots like you. Systems that need innovation mid-air. No training manual, no script, just instinct. She looked up. We need Phoenix. Jam's heart pounded. It was everything she'd once wanted, and more terrifying than anything she'd faced in combat. I don't know if I can do this, she said. Lieutenant Rodriguez the younger stepped forward again. My dad always said that flying with you made him braver, he said. You didn't just lead. You gave people permission to believe they could do more than survive. That one sentence broke something loose inside her. She thought about Sarah, about that last flight, about the promise they made, sitting under a Vendée, burning orange sky at Fallon, swearing they'd make a difference together. One of them had tried. The other had run. It was time to fix that. When do we leave? She asked. Stone's expression didn't change, but her eyes, those sharp, calculating eyes, softened. We've been ready since 2014. We've just been waiting for you to catch up. The plane took off before sunset, and this time, she didn't look back. The Nevada sun hadn't changed, but everything else had. 12 years. That's how long it had been since Jamila Phoenix Kowalski last set foot on the tarmac at Naval Air Station Fallon. Now, she stepped down from the C-130 transport and onto the same scorched concrete where she'd once earned her wings, only this time. A formation of young pilots stood waiting. They were watching her with reverence. Some were barely older than she'd been when she vanished. Fresh call signs, crisp flight suits, unsure eyes. The Phoenix Initiative, 12 pilots handpicked by the Navy as the next generation of innovators. And they were looking at her like she was something more than human. She wasn't ready for that, but she also knew she was needed. Admiral Stone's voice cut through the air. Phoenix, meet the pilots who've been trying to follow in your footsteps without ever knowing where those footsteps led. Jam stepped forward. The first to approach was a confident woman with lieutenant commander stripes and a focused gaze. Ma'am, she said, extending a hand. I'm Sarah Kim. I've studied every second of your training footage. Your air combat tactics changed how I fly. Thank you, Jam replied. The name Sarah, catching her off guard. Another stepped up. Lieutenant Tony Vasquez, he said. Is it true you developed a Phoenix maneuver during a love fire simulation? Jam smiled faintly. I was just trying not to get shot down. They laughed. But it was nervous. These pilots had grown up on her reputation. They didn't know the weight she carried beneath the myth. As they moved into the hangar, Admiral Stone led them to a briefing room, where the walls were covered with Jam's old flight data missions she'd forgotten, simulations she'd dominated, assessments that once told her she was destined for something great. "Phoenix," Stone said, "look at this from a different angle. Not as yourself, as an instructor. What would you say about this pilot?" Jam scanned the records. Her scores were off the charts. Reaction times, tactical improvisation, flight leadership, all things she dismissed at the time as lucky guesses, instinct. But it wasn't luck. It was skill. She saw that now. She turned back. "This pilot has the highest adaptive response curve I've ever seen. The Navy should have made her an instructor years ago." "Then maybe," Stone said softly. "It's time she did." Jan exhaled slowly. That night, she stood alone on the catwalk above the hangar, watching the F-22s below, listening to the creaks and hums of a place that had shaped her, and remembering Sarah's laughter echoing in the locker room, Morrison's scowl in the briefing halls. The first time she was called Phoenix, she heard footsteps behind her. "Permission to speak freely, ma'am," came Sarah Kim's voice. Jan nodded. "I know what it's like to feel out of place," Kim said. "My first day here, someone told me I only got into the initiative because they needed more women." Jam didn't flinch. "They said that to me too. Back in 2011, how did you prove them wrong?" "I didn't," Jam said. "I just flew better. That shut them up faster." Kim smiled faintly. "They said you were ruthless in simulations, that you never hesitated." Jam turned to face her. "You know why? Because every hesitation I made off the field was used against me. I couldn't afford doubt in the air." Silence lingered. Then Kim asked, "And now? Are you still ruthless?" "No," Jam replied. "Now I'm something worse." "What's that?" "Experienced." The two women stood in the cooling desert wind. No ranks, no titles, just two pilots connected by a thread of shared doubt and the fight to overcome it. Before they parted, Kim looked at her. "I'm glad you came back. We needed you more than we realized." Jam didn't answer, but in her heart, for the first time in years, she believed it. The first test flight wasn't supposed to feel like a funeral. Yet as Jam stepped into the cockpit of the prototype fighter, sleek, black, silent as shadow, something inside her clenched. The canopy lowered with a mechanical hiss, wrapping her in solitude. It wasn't fear. It wasn't even hesitation. It was memory. 12 years since she'd worn a flight suit that tight. 12 years since she'd strapped herself to a machine capable of killing her in half a breath. But muscle memory came faster than doubt. Check throttle, HUD sync, oxygen, engine, hum smooth, deep, responsive, no glitches. Shadow 1 came. Admiral Stone's voice over the comm. "You are clear for taxi." She inhaled once. Then, copy, rolling. The others watched from the tower. Sarah Kim, Rodriguez, Vasquez, the new Phoenix team. None of them had flown it yet. The Navy didn't want simulations. They wanted proof that Phoenix wasn't just a myth, that she could still lead. She reached the runway, lined up, and closed her eyes for one heartbeat. "Sarah," she whispered inside. Then she opened them. Throttle forward. The jet screamed to life and launched into the sky like a missile. The base dropped away below her, and with it, the weight. At 45,000 feet, she let go of the world. The sun was blinding here, the clouds like broken sheets of silk, and for the first time in 12 years, she flew like she belonged. She tested the roll tolerance, inverted flight, hard banking. Turns. The aircraft responded like a living thing. Her hands knew every move before she thought it. Not F-22 anymore. This was beyond that. Sleeker, smarter, faster, deadlier. Control. "This is Shadow 1. She said. "I'm pushing it." The voice of Captain Martinez replied. "You've already broken the Raptor's best climb time. Just don't rip the wings off." Jam smiled. It was genuine. She took it higher, And then, without warning, she pulled the Phoenix maneuver. A hard upward brake, mid-roll stall, tail drift pivot, and violent drop into the attacker's blind spot. No one had ever pulled it in a non-simulated dogfight and lived to tell it. And yet, here she was. When she landed, a small crowd had formed. Even the mechanics were applauding. Jam climbed down slowly, helmet under arm. She didn't pose, didn't speak, but every young pilot there stared at her like they were watching a resurrection. Rodriguez was first to reach her. That was insane. She offered poetry, he said. Sarah Kim ran up next, tablet in hand. You doubled the F-22's turn rate at full throttle, ma'am. What even is that jet? Jam looked back at it. She didn't know, but it had finally given her something she didn't know she needed. A second chance to define herself. Later that night, in the quiet of the barracks-turned-hotel wing reserved for instructors, she found an envelope on her bed. No markings, no signature. Inside, one photo. It was her and Sarah Walsh, taken 12 years ago, laughing, arms draped around each other in flight gear. Engine smoke curling behind them. On the back, a single line. Written in Sarah's handwriting. If we die, let it be flying. If we live, let it be real. Jam stared at it for a long time. Then she folded it carefully, placed it in the chest pocket of her flight suit, and finally, after all this time, she wept, not out of guilt, but out of release. The first time she entered the briefing room as Instructor Phoenix, they stood in silence, not from fear, not from duty, from respect. 12 pilots, each handpicked from the sharpest minds in the Navy, sat in 2 neat rows, tablets in front of them, heads turned toward her. Jam stepped to the front without a word. She let the silence linger, let the weight of the moment stretch. She didn't wear her old flight suit. She wore a black tactical uniform, sleeves rolled. On her chest, no name, just the symbol of the Phoenix Initiative, a stylized bird, rising from fractured wings. I'm not here to make you better pilots, she said at last. Her voice was calm, precise. You already are. I'm here to make you the kind of pilots who survive when everything goes wrong. No one moved. You'll be tested, she continued. Not in the ways you're used to. Not in controlled sims or predictable drills. Real failures, real sabotage, fog, burnout, panic. I'm going to push you past the limits of confidence into the realm of truth. She tapped to the screen behind her. Footage played. Dogfights, explosions, warnings, and then black box audio, her own voice. Shadow lead. I've lost her. I repeat Sarah's down. They froze. She looked at them. I'm not perfect. You shouldn't be either. Perfect gets cocky. Cocky gets dead. She shut the screen off. What saves you up there, she said softly, is control of chaos. That's what I teach. For the next 2 hours, she spoke not as a legend, but as a woman who had merely lost herself. She dissected her own mistakes, explained misjudgments, showed them recordings from missions she had once buried. Kim raised her hand halfway through. Why show us your failures? Because, Jam replied, those are the only things that ever taught me something. By the end of the session, they all had changed. They no longer saw a ghost story with wings. They saw a leader. That night, on the rooftop of the hangar, she watched the stars alone until someone climbed the ladder. She didn't turn around. She knew the rhythm of those boots. Sarah Kim sat beside her, bringing 2 steaming mugs of black coffee. You were different today, Kim said. How so? You stopped apologizing. Jam took a sip. The coffee was terrible, just like she liked it. I stopped believing the myth, she said, so I could finally become the person they thought I was. Kim stared at the sky. Do you ever think about quitting again? All the time. What stops you? Jam looked at her. You, Kim smiled, trying not to. I was barely holding myself together in that sim yesterday. She admitted, I saw you watching. Thought I was about to get benched. I was. Watching to see when you'd break, Jam said. But you didn't. Kim's voice grew quiet. Sometimes I'm terrified that I'm not good enough to carry this name. The Phoenix badge, you're not supposed to carry it, Jam said. You're supposed to become your own version of it. Kim leaned back, resting her head against the metal. So what happens when we graduate? Jam's expression turned. Thoughtful. We scatter, we fight, we protect. Some of us die. Some of us teach. Some of us disappear for a while. And you? I lead, as long as I can. Kim stood to leave, but before she did, she said something that stayed with Jam long after the stars faded. Every myth has a rebirth. You're not the legend we grew up with anymore. You're something better. You're real. Jam sat alone after that, and for the first time in years, she felt whole. Not because the world had forgiven her, but because she had finally forgiven herself. The mission order came at 0300, classified, immediate deployment, all hands. Jam stood in the hangar before sunrise, already in her flight gear, helmet under one arm. The Phoenix initiative was assembled behind her 12 pilots. Alert-eyed, silent, focused. No one asked where they were going. The tone in Admiral Stone's voice had said enough. This wasn't training. This was real. Colonel Martinez stepped forward, tablet in hand, face pale. Satellite reconnaissance. Over the Black Sea picked up a foreign drone swarm breach. Coordinated. Tactical. It's not a rogue op, this is state-backed. Russian? Rodriguez asked. Martinez hesitated. Unofficially, yes. But what matters is this. There's a NATO reconnaissance vessel trapped near Turkish airspace. They were testing a prototype AI decryption hub on board. If that tech is captured, everyone knew the risk. Autonomous control of encrypted systems. A digital warhead. Jam exhaled. Evacuation plan? No time, Martinez said. The ship's under silent lockdown. Automated defense grid is active, but 2 minutes from overheating. We can't remote pilot it. We either recover the tech, or we let it sink and risk global escalation. Stone turned to Jam. We need eyes on the swarm. And someone who can fly a black box algorithm through jamming protocols at 10 gigaseconds. Jam nodded. I'll go. Rodriguez stepped forward instantly. You're not going alone. None of us are, Kim added. Jam looked at them, her team. Not kids anymore. Not shadows of who she used to be. They were the future now. She gave a single nod. Suit up within 40 minutes. 4 Phoenix aircraft roared from the Nevada desert into a quiet sky, leaving. No trail. The ride over the Atlantic was uneventful until it wasn't. 30 miles out, the jamming began. HUD flickered. Comes cut. Cloud layers thickened like war smoke. And then, movement. Eyes left. Kim barked. Visual on the swarm. Hundreds of small drones, no larger than hawks moving in precise formations, circling the NATO ship like mechanical vultures. Their heat signatures pulsed erratically, disrupting. Radar. Every known countermeasure protocol failed. Jam's voice came through, calm despite the static. New plan, Kim. Flank left. Vasquez. Take the sky. Rodriguez. Mirror me. Mirror what? He asked, but she was already diving straight through the swarm. The Phoenix maneuver. Modified, this time at supersonic descent speed. She inverted just as the drones recalibrated, causing them to fracture formation and chase false targets. Rodriguez followed on instinct. Kim's voice crackled. 10 seconds to ship contact. Jam dropped altitude hard, slicing beneath the cloud layer. The ocean whipping past like a blurred scream. The ship loomed, systems failing, sparks across its hull. Drone impacts imminent. Jam didn't blink. She throttled down and angled her bird sideways, a maneuver that shouldn't work in gravity. But it did. The AI decryption hub, no larger than a refrigerator, was ejected from the ship's bay, just as she hovered over the stern. Rodriguez's jet latched its claw to the capsule and peeled upward. Jam rolled left. A drone clipped her wing. Sparks, A warning alarm screamed. "Phoenix!" Kim shouted. "You're hit!" "I'm fine," she replied. But she wasn't. Fuel leak, hydraulics down. Her craft was bleeding in the sky. She saw the last of the drones redirect straight for her. Hundreds. She didn't have time to escape. She had one option. She throttled back, then surged forward, right into the center of the swarm. The drones clustered, following heat and movement, collapsing around her like a net. From the ground, Kim and the others watched the radar signature disappear. 1 second, she was there. The next, nothing. Kim's scream cracked across the channel. "Jam!" But there was no answer. Silence fell. The swarm scattered, confused, without a target. Their algorithms failed. The rest of the Phoenix team finished the sweep and retrieved the capsule. Rodriguez flew with shaking hands. Kim kept calling her name, but the skies were quiet. Hours later, back at Fallon, they stood in formation. 12-1. Stone delivered the report. Lieutenant Commander Jamila Kowalski, call sign Phoenix, confirmed lost in action over the Black Sea. No recovery. No one moved. Kim stared forward, blinking back tears. Rodriguez stood with fists clenched. Then Stone added softly. Final transmission scrambled. Partial contains 3 words. Fly like her. The room broke, not with noise, with silence. They'd expected her to teach them how to survive. Instead, she taught them how to fly with meaning. 2 days later, the Black Sea satellite feed picked up something odd. A heat bloom, small, controlled. Too steady for wreckage, too focused for chance. No. One said it out loud, but some believed that the Phoenix had risen again, and sometimes. Dignity doesn't speak, it simply acts.